Welcome to my presentation on experiential learning. Today we will look at the origins of this method, the 4 stages of experiential learning, as described by David Kolb, some techniques that can be used in the classroom, and finally a profile of junior achievement, a real-world program offering experiential learning to all levels of students. Kurt Lewin was a prominent psychologist in the early half of the 20th century who dealt primarily with child development. His Action Research Model, or ARM, dealt with how to inspire positive behavioral change in the arena of research, especially through democratic collaboration. Kolb has adapted his model into a 4-stage cycle starting with actors and a concrete experience. Observations about the experience are made and data recorded to be used in the next step to make theories about the observed behavior of the system in question. Next, theories are tested and resulting observations fed back into the experience aspect of the model. This cycle repeats until observations and theory are fully aligned. The importance of the feedback cycle in learning experiences cannot be understated, as it is this step that allows for reflection, evaluation, and assimilation of new data into existing knowledge constructs. John Dewey was a contemporary of Lewin, and also concerned with the value of collaboration and a democratic process of information gathering, analysis, and interpreting. As Kolb describes this model, we see that learning must begin with an impulse, an interaction between a human's natural tendency to seek out experience and ideas that form from prior experiences. As Kolb puts it, the impulse gives ideas their moving force, and ideas give direction to impulse. Like Lewin's model, observations arise and are related to existing experience, which generates new knowledge. Judgment of the new knowledge allows one to test the validity of new inferences, and the cycle feeds back into subsequent iterations until purpose matures from the initial impulse. Here, I interpret purpose as the learner's objectives, specifically those imposed by an instructor. Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget, also a contemporary of Dewey and Lewin, was primarily concerned with the cognitive development of the human brain from infancy to adulthood. He applied this concept to the overall development of scientific inquiry, and so Kolb finds cohesive parallels with his work and that of Dewey and Lewin. Again, we see the cycle begin with concrete experience, which is acted upon by the learner's observation abilities and reflective capacity. This allows abstractions and hypotheses to be formed, which are then investigated and tested. Those theories which can be confirmed through experimentation are transformed into knowledge and fed back into the cycle. Kolb defines the elements of concrete experience and abstraction as grasping, in that they involve understanding the complexities of an experience, whereas reflection and experimentation transform that experience into new knowledge. Dr. Kolb's work in synthesizing a learning strategy adapted the work of his 3 predecessors on the cyclical nature of the learning process, and added a second dimension that he called learning styles. The first dimension should be quite familiar. It starts with the here and now experience that serves to ground the students in a common context, one that they can share and discuss with each other and which provides impetus for inquiry. Reflection, or the processing of experiences, observations, and prior knowledge from multiple perspectives, comes next. And then there's conceptualization, the synthesis of testable theories from observations and prior experiences. Next, it's application, using new knowledge and applying it in novel situations. Recall that the 4 stages of the cycle seek to describe a way of thinking or otherwise interacting with the experience surrounding the learner. It is from that perspective that we should look at Kolb's learning style descriptions. The second dimension is meant to help identify teaching strategies that accommodate a student's preferred method of interacting with the problem or experience at hand. Looking at the Venn diagram, Kolb envisioned the 4 elements of the first dimension being in a state of tension, north opposing south and east opposing west. The areas of intersection between the elements represent a different way of approaching a problem. The diverging approach is collaborative in nature. It tends toward group activities such as brainstorming, and can be facilitated by hands-on activities and the opportunity to explore with others. The assimilating approach is focused on reasoning and analysis of facts. It can be facilitated by independent exercises that the learner can complete on their own, as well as private exploration of concepts guided by the instructor. Then there's the converging approach. It's characterized by a highly technical and yet flexible application of diverse concepts in varied contexts. It is facilitated by workbooks or worksheets that provide problem sets, tasks that are computer-based, and interactive activities. Accommodating. Trial and error is a big part of this approach, with the discovery process being at least as important as finding the answer. Activities that allow people to be actively engaged will help facilitate this approach, as well as exploration and instructor support for deeper questioning, such as what if and why not. Also, tasks that promote independent discovery can be very helpful. I think it's important to note here that Kolb's learning styles are not meant to classify students as to how they are wired. Rather, it's a means to organize the presentation of information such that a variety of skills can be developed by each student. It is natural to assume that the content itself will help dictate what presentation method is best, and it is up to the instructor to push students out of their comfort zone to exercise as wide a range of cognitive skills as possible. In the classroom, experiences can take many forms, depending on the content and time allotted. For example, here in Colorado, water usage rights and associated laws are a big deal and affect life on a daily basis. A debate on proposed water use legislation can serve as a framework within which students research, review, debate, analyze, and synthesize information over a few weeks. That could be expanded by recreating the entire legislative process, with students taking on various roles both within and outside of the government. For a shorter experience, students might be given the tasks of reinterpreting a scene from a well-known play or movie. Having them reframe the character's speech, dress, and delivery of dialogue can help them understand subtexts and motivations more deeply than simply reading or watching the scenes. Case studies are a tried and true method where students must consider a real-world example of a problem or dilemma using supporting data either supplied by the teacher or gathered on their own. The exercise requires organizational, analytical, collaborative, and creative skills to discover, evaluate, and reformat source material that will then be presented to the class and perhaps even debated over and defended. A great example of experiential learning comes from the organization Junior Achievement. JA uses real-world experience to teach students core competencies in the areas of work readiness, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy. Having had its start in 1919 as a focused work training program, JA eventually expanded into the classroom in the 1970s and has since expanded curriculum and experiences to include both in-class and after-school programs. JA relies heavily upon volunteers including educators, retirees, university students, and experts in the respective fields to provide engaging, authentic experiences to students across the grade spectrum from over 127,000 locations nationwide. Take a look at the video to get an idea of what they're about.
We envision a world where young people have the skill set and mindset to build thriving communities. It starts with one change maker. It can be a volunteer, an educator, or a supporter. This change maker inspires and prepares students to succeed through learning experiences that focus on 3 sets of critical life skills not always taught in school. These learning experiences help students connect what they learn in school to life outside the classroom. This impacts the many students we reach today and the countless lives they will influence tomorrow. We do this by bringing a different approach to education that uses innovation and contextual learning in partnership with educators, employers, and the community at large. In the end, our promise is to provide learning experiences that help young people reach their potential. In other words, our name is our promise.
Thanks for spending another 10 minutes with me, and keep an eye out for more amazing presentations.